Broadcasting from Boston, Massachusetts, the ARC Digital Transformation Viewpoints podcast is the only podcast dedicated to all things related to digital transformation in energy, industrial, and critical infrastructure applications. The podcast is the creation of the ARC Advisory Group Digital Transformation Practice. ARC advises leading companies on technology trends and market dynamics that affect their business. To engage further, please like and share our podcasts or reach out directly on Twitter at ARC_advisory, or please go to the website at www.arcweb.com.
Welcome. I'm here at AWS reInvent 2025 with a couple of guests to talk about untangling industrial data with AWS, Joe Rosing from AWS, and HighByte. So pleased that you could join us, Tori. So Tori Penroy Canberra.
I know, it's a mouthful.
Yes. I just think of you as Tori.
That's fine.
And while we've been here, I mean, the topics have been really about agents, increasingly autonomous agentic systems, monitored by security and policy to kind of provide some guardrails. And so everyone's really excited about the potential of this future of agents and people and machines working together, which I think is where you're going to come into the conversation. But when we're talking about industrial data or the factory, there's like I was going to say a brick wall, a factory wall, right? So even though they see all this potential of AI, there's a huge problem there. So maybe, Tori, just set the stage for us on what are the factors that are really holding manufacturing back, particularly in the factory.
Yeah, I'm sure every industry has its challenges with wrangling data, but I think manufacturers are up against some really large challenges, and it's a unique industry. First, very complex architectures, lots of different systems, data sources, and targets. The second is data variety. Complex in terms of telemetry, transactional, historical files. So you see a very large data variety. Third, almost all the data lacks context. So you're talking about very raw data that anyone that's outside of the factory walls is going to have a hard time understanding if they're not a domain expert. And fourth, just in general, lack of resources. It's an industry with tight margins, and digital fluency outside of centers of excellence can be lacking. So you have this perfect storm that creates a lot of challenges of working with manufacturing data.
And you must see this as well, Joe, right? Talking with manufacturers, you head up the Manufacturing Center of Excellence at AWS. So you must see these challenges. Anything to add on that heterogeneous nature that you see and the barriers they're facing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as customers have looked at trying to experiment with AI, and the way we think about it is, traditional systems engineering, but now you're doing systems engineering with new tools in the toolbox. It's these new AI capabilities, the agents, but it's really forced manufacturers to get real about fixing their data. We can't kick that can down the road any further if we want to take advantage of the new technology. And Tori mentioned context, and that is absolutely the key. Anyone that's ever tried to get a response by writing an AI prompt has realized that without adding the context to the prompt, you just don't get an accurate answer. So doing context at scale is particularly the challenge in manufacturing when you have so many different data sources and so much variety on the shop floor across the equipment, the protocols, and the different factories across the global footprint.
Right, and at ARC, I kind of do our research on industrial data fabrics, and there's a couple of key barriers that we see, and one is, and you made the point, everyone's trying to fix their data, so the data quality because of all the complexity, all the different systems. But in the IT world, and I think a lot of the audience that's here at this event are kind of very familiar with the idea of IT data ops.
Mm-hmm.
But it's different, right, for us, and we've got this term, and I think you helped evangelize that term, Tori, industrial data ops. So maybe talk about how it's different, with all those different data types and challenges. How is it different?
Yeah, data ops is not a new term, certainly. I think it was coined in IT, maybe even by IBM back in 2014. So it's not new, but applying it to industrial is. I think we wrote a white paper on it back in 2019, and we, as you said, continue to evangelize this concept. It's really about taking data. It's about data integration and adding context to data while it's in motion. And so because once it's already landed somewhere else, it's too late to do that. So that's what our focus has been, is contextualizing that data while it's in motion and working with a very large variety of data.
Well, let's explore that a little bit, because you talked about context, and you've also mentioned it. And there's a lot of focus on moving data. But very often when I'm talking to manufacturers in particular, it's like, we create petabytes of data on the factory floor and at the factory edge, and we don't necessarily see the value in moving all of that data. And you very often hear this term, data, not data lake, what's the term we hear? Data swamp, right? Because that data has been moved without context. So I'm starting to hear a lot of people talking about context engineering. So maybe talk a little bit more about the pros and cons of moving that data, or contextualizing it before you move it.
Sure, yeah. I remember years ago we spoke with an automotive manufacturer who was interested in moving 750,000 raw data tags into the cloud and then trying to figure out what to do with it once it got there. That's expensive and really not use case driven. So I think with our customers, we talk about use cases a lot, whether that's predictive asset maintenance, quality, inspection, really thinking about the end use case in mind, and then working back to understand what data you'll need in order to solve that use case. And context doesn't just mean metadata, right? It's not just about where does this asset live, or when was it last serviced. You really want to be able to reach into multiple data sources to add the context to that. So we work with more than just telemetry data, but when you're looking at an asset, the context for that asset, when it was serviced, who last serviced it, it lives in many different systems. And so part of a data model is being able to combine attributes from a wide variety of sources.
And there's this term that we use a lot in the factory or with real-time data, which is kind of the unified namespace, right? And again, IT have kind of got a corresponding term. They'll talk a lot about master data management, but maybe talk a little bit about the unified namespace. I know you have specific products and capabilities to actually deliver on that vision of a unified namespace. But Joe, any thoughts on?
Well, I think the unified namespace is key to helping avoid that data swamp that you're talking about, right? Because what I hear from customers sometimes is, hey, we're just going to connect everything, throw it in the data lake, and we'll figure it out later. And that's where you end up with the data swamp, because not only does it not have context, but the data doesn't have purpose. And so working backwards from that outcome is really key, because it also drives the need for, what are we going to do with this data? Like, what's going to be the value of it? And when we think about how we're going to use it, it then really starts to beg questions of, okay, well, now we need a plan. Like, we need a strategy for how we're going to organize the data. How do we create data as a product so that it is available, contextualized, and then ready for innovation at scale? And that's why it's really important to do the contextualization as close to the source as possible as well, such that we have more repeatability higher up in the stack. And when I get success at one of the use cases using this data in a given plant, for example, I can then replicate that success more easily because I've done the contextualization. I have a plan for how I'm doing that and organized in, for example, a unified namespace.
Right. So get out of pilot purgatory, I think, is what I read between the lines there. Right. Let's talk a bit about the partnership, right? You're part of the AWS partner network, and in manufacturing in particular, no one company can do it all anyway. So
that is certainly true.
So we're kind of used to the fact that you have to partner to deliver value and solutions. But talk a little bit about what you do to leverage AWS, but the value that you're adding, and I'm sure you have some thoughts on what HighByte brings to that value equation as well. So between the two of you, maybe explain the partnership.
Sure.
I can start. I mean, I think it's beholden on AWS to really simplify digital transformation for our customers. And of course, we have a variety of services because we believe in choice and flexibility. And while that allows for simplification of doing specific things, it can also be overwhelming at times for customers of like, hey, there's 3 options to do one thing. What's the best? And really, one of the advantages of working with HighByte is it's a shortcut. It adds a lot of simplicity to the AWS services and leveraging those services to get the data off the shop floor and into your AWS environment. It provides that user interface and just a great tool set to really simplify how you can not only get that data, but add the context and then take advantage of some of the other services that we offer to then drive, those AI-driven type of outcomes.
Yeah, Joe articulated that so well. I would just add that, to step back a little bit too, we've been talking about the OT-IT gap or divide for decades. And I think this partnership really starts to help close that gap meaningfully for manufacturers and other industrial companies. It's where the edge meets the cloud. It's where OT meets IT. It's preparing that industrial data so it's ready to be consumed in powerful, scalable AWS services. And we're just helping to make that simple for customers. And as Joe said, trying to provide some sample reference architectures and solid case studies to help other manufacturers get started.
So maybe you mentioned customers, and ultimately they're the proof. So maybe talk about some customer examples of where you've worked together to deliver that value.
Sure, I'll take that one. Since we're here at AWS reInvent, last year actually on the stage, Gusto, who is a manufacturer based in the UK, sort of like the HelloFresh of the UK, if you will. They have an incredibly complex manufacturing process in packaging their kits. And we worked together, HighByte and AWS, and they essentially built a unified namespace and built an entire data foundation. In the beginning, they started with a very simple use case, just trying to reduce mean time to repair. So they were really looking to just begin with reactive maintenance and reducing that time. Within a year, they had gone beyond reactive to preventative to prescriptive to putting together entire simulation models to start with something so elemental, but because it was built on a solid data foundation, really being able to completely undergo a digital transformation in 12 months, moving their OEE from 70 to 95% in the first 6 months. So it's an incredible use case, but I don't think that it's unique. We have many customers that are doing the same thing.
Yeah, I think that's a great example too of where, like Andy Jassy has said, speed is a leadership decision. And I challenge with a number of our customers with that same kind of sentiment, because there's this question of, well, should I wait till all my data is clean before I get started, or do I just jump in? And really, it's a leadership decision around how fast do you want to transform, because the tools are available. And this is a great example too of where when you can bring in HighByte, it simplifies the process of getting started, getting your data ready to the point that you can start to see real results in as little as 12 months.
Great. And maybe, I know we're running out of time, so perhaps from each of you a closing thought on if you had to give people one piece of advice, that they're in OT or they're part of that OT, IT, and I would add data science nowadays, right? I'm seeing kind of the three teams trying to work out how to tackle, and sometimes they talk different languages, right? But ultimately they're all trying to solve the same, how do we get value out of not just the data, but the possibilities, everything we're seeing here about running agents and even building our own new frontier models, right? Some of the exciting announcements we've had here so far this week. So maybe keep it simple, right? One piece of advice.
Oh, that's hard. Well, just to build on the Gusto case study, why I think that worked so well for them is they build a cross-functional team. They thought big, but started small, and they were able to scale fast that way. They had leadership buy-in. They measured the current state and then their desired future outcomes. So they had a quantifiable result that they could continue to sell into leadership, to continue to get investment and build on their digital transformation projects. And they worked with a partner ecosystem that was committed to interoperability. And so using those sort of cultural pieces, don't take people out of the equation. The technology is so important, but people in manufacturing are what's really going to drive change.
It's always about people, processes, and technology.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Yeah, people, process, technology, and data, right? And I would...
Well, okay, yes. I agree.
But I also think, like, my encouragement would be similar in the sense of, but just get started, right? Like, the time is now to really rethink these common workflows in manufacturing. We have an opportunity to drive unprecedented levels of productivity with the new tools in this toolbox, and rethinking kind of the old ways we do maintenance management, quality management, can all be redefined now that we have things like AI agents and assistant models and things like that. But it's all going to require the data to be in a place where you can innovate quickly to get results quickly. And the best way to start to realize those results is just to get started. And start to dig into a use case. Let's pick one outcome. Let's work backwards from that outcome so we have purpose and context for the data that we're going to use, and then we'll start to build off that success.
Well, as Director of Research for Industrial AI at ARC Advisory Group, my last couple of reports have been on industrial data fabrics, and a lot of our research is focused on how do you ensure data quality as the foundation for everything else. So yes, I agree with you adding data, Joe. So with that, I think we'll wrap up. I've been here with Joe Rossing, head of the Manufacturing Center of Excellence at AWS, and Tori Penroyd-Kembra, who is co-founder and communications leader for HighByte, a key partner in AWS's partner network. So thanks for joining us.